Sometimes, despite a player's willingness to go all the way, some games make it beyond a chore to see that coveted 100%. The worst offenders when it comes to missing out on completion are things you were meant to grab on your way to the finish line, but because you didn't happen to see them or figured you'd come back for them later, are gone forever. How are you supposed to know that if you didn't grab this one item now, then it was going to affect the rest of your save file? There's no feeling quite like getting to the end of a game and not realising you messed up that 100% hours ago. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 missable video game items that cost you 100%. Number 10. Research. BioShock 2. Aside from its focus on storytelling, another great selling point of the BioShock games is the combat that marries firearms, melee, and even something akin to spellcasting. By equipping tonics, players are able to max out their skills and fling fire, ice, and lightning at the various nasties that come their way. On top of all the ways to dish out punishment, BioShock and BioShock 2 had the research camera, which implored players to take a few photos of every new splicer they came into contact with. Maxing out research on enemies is important for 3 reasons. Firstly, it is quite simply tied to 100%. Secondly, researching enemies offers you bonuses against them. Finally, the final piece of research on many foes gives the player certain exclusive tonics. However, if you don't get to capturing wonderful memories of your time in Rapture with your insane buddies as soon as you're able, it's entirely possible to miss your chance. As you progress throughout BioShock 2, certain enemies no longer spawn, and it's impossible to get the research you need. It seems like such a simple thing, but the camera and research element of the game is truly completely optional, unless of course you want to feel like you've fully accomplished the game, in which case you better get snap happy. Number 9. Poo Poo Triple Triad card, Final Fantasy VIII. The Final Fantasy series has plenty of incredibly challenging unlockables to discover across its many entries, but narrowing it down to one easy to miss item was quite easy. Whilst it might be one of the most beloved minigames in the series, Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad sure has its fair share of obtuse demands. Not only does the player have to challenge specific NPCs at particular moments in order to even get a shot at winning rare cards, sometimes you must sacrifice certain rarities to win them back alongside something better later. That's not confusing at all. One of the hardest to add to your collection is the adorable yet concerningly named Poo Poo. In order to get a card of this intergalactic mystery, the checklist of events starts with visiting 4 particular parts of the world map and waiting to encounter a battle with a UFO. Afterwards, players must go to another specific part of the map and wait to come across the little blue man. Attacking or running away from Poo Poo means you'll never get this one-time card, and the alien will only give it up in exchange for 5 elixirs, so let's hope you've kept some handy for a rainy day. And your reward for collecting every Triple Triad card? A little star on the menu screen to show how devoted to pointless tasks you are. Wonderful. Number 8. MV Command, Just Cause 2. Vehicles aren't necessarily an item in the same way that accessories or armors are, but they certainly are a tool to be used to achieve one's goals in a video game, whether that's travelling quickly across an open world, doing some sick stunt jumps, or ramming down enemies to save yourself the ammunition. It's not an unheard of style of achievement or trophy to ask players to use every one of a certain kind of item, and so Just Cause 2's Trying Everything Once, which asks players to be behind the wheel of 104 different vehicles, isn't overly a surprise. However, this rather ordinary trophy just so happens to be the least unlocked worldwide. The reason for that? The MV Command. This Jeep-like 4-seater off-roader only appears unmanned in 2 missions. If you miss out on getting a go with one during the game's 4th agency task, you might get a second chance later during the mission taking care of the dishes. Otherwise, you'll be doomed to go to a very specific part of the map, get some heat with the law, and hold out hope that the armed forces bring an MV Command that you can hijack, providing you survive. Thankfully, the game's DLC added new vehicles which do contribute to that 104 needed, but at launch this was one achievement that most players gave up on. Number 7. Champions Tunic, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was the game that finally took the Zelda series off its rails and let it explore some new things. A fully open world, lots of new abilities and approaches to combat, and of course, being able to outfit Link however the player saw fit. Now, whilst it's unlikely to happen, it is technically possible to miss some of the game's best rewards, including the most coveted of all. The Champion's Tunic is much closer to what gamers expect Link to be outfitted in, and more than that, it's one of the best armors in the game and lets players see the remaining health of any enemy they're fighting. However, if Link's inventory slots are already full when Impa gifts him the Champion's Tunic, it will disappear into the ether, gone forever. Obviously, this is a simple enough workaround if you don't panic. Reloading your save and letting go of some of those different coloured doubles, triples, triples and quadruples you're carrying around at the very least to make room for it is a simple enough fix, provided you didn't save the game, turn it off, and then head to the internet to see why the Champion's Tunic didn't appear in your inventory. And let's face it, considering the number of people who played this game without the knowledge this could occur, it surely happened to someone. Number 6. Chaos Ring, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. Throughout Castlevania's life on Nintendo handhelds, it became a tradition for the Chaos Ring to be a pretty sought after and ergo hard to obtain little accessory. Aria of Sorrow and Portrait of Ruin both have their own trials for players to go through to grab this piece of jewellery, but it's Dawn of Sorrow that really takes things to an extreme. In this game, protagonist Soma Cruz collects souls from downing demons of all shapes and sizes. Tactical souls have a variety of different uses, opening up spells and abilities for Soma to pull off in his fight for survival and exploration of Dracula's castle. Additionally, souls can be used to upgrade weapons. Players ought to be very careful about which souls they use though, as some bosses only ever spawn once, and using the souls of the likes of Death or Abaddon ultimately means boxing yourself out of the 100%. Without at least one of every soul in their possession, players won't be able to grab the Chaos Ring. This piece of jewellery revitalises Soma's MP so fast it's practically unlimited, which seems a shame not to pick up, but it's getting all the way to the end and not realising you needed to deftly cling onto every demon soul to get that 100% that stings the most. Number 5. Bobble Heads, Fallout 3. If the Fallout series taught us anything, it's that determination and grit are certainly a way to survive a nuclear apocalypse. As is, if you're lucky enough that your family got to stay in an underground vault, patience and forward thinking. These are all things you might need as you scour the wasteland in search of Fallout 3's Bobblehead collectibles. It's completely possible and in fact all too easy to waltz right past some of the bobbleheads that are in areas you can never return to. This leaves you with missing stat boosts and, more damning, an incomplete collection in your megaton abode. At least most absent collectibles in video games don't stare back at you like this stand and its missing pieces. That's reason enough to take things slow or use a guide. The first bobblehead appears right at the start of the game in Vault 101 and actually, unknowingly to the player, sets up the precedent. If you don't grab it whilst you can, you're never going to be able to go back for it. In actuality, this is the first of 4 frustrating bobbleheads that can't be obtained beyond a certain point for medicine, repair, strength and energy weapon boost. Naturally, there's an achievement associated with grabbing all 20, but just staring at this disgusting incomplete stand should be enough of an incentive. Number 4. Master Ball, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. When it comes to the most powerful weapons in a Pokemon trainer's arsenal, there's very few things as sacred as the Master Ball. With a 100% guaranteed catch rate, there's a reason that there only exists one in each game. It's fair to say that almost every player has used one of these very exclusive items at one stage to skip the potential stress of a battle with a legendary Pokemon in one single simple turn. Not so tough now, are you, Mewtwo? Now get in this ball and stay in my PC for all eternity. Whilst trainers are often gifted the Master Ball by a pivotal NPC on their journey, in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the ultimate capture device is located in the hideout of the game's specific evil team. However, if the player doesn't grab it on their one run-through of Team Magma or Team Aqua's hideout, then it'll be gone forever when the entrance to the location is sealed. Search all of Hoenn as much as you like, without getting extremely lucky at Lily Cove Department Store, you've missed the easy route to capture Groudon, Kyogre, or the tough as nails Rayquaza. Without the Master Ball, the game's pivotal legendary showdowns all become much harder, and that powerful one-turn capture becomes a stress headache of throwing Ultra Balls and hoping for the best. Number 3. Echo Stone Earring, Fatal Frame 3, The Tormented. One thing that's important to note about Fatal Frame 3 is that, like most of the series, it's absolutely terrifying. Another is that it's impossible to get the game's best ending on the first playthrough, and it's only on New Game Plus that it becomes obtainable at all. So, in order to see everything that Fatal Frame 3 has to offer, players will need to power through the game twice and then screech to a halt when it comes to hour 10 of 13 to grab a little something along the way. Hidden inside of the room where players can find Purple Diary 4 is a newly spawned secret hatch that leads down to a photographic battle with Koyoka, also known as the Woman Brushing. Defeating her will gift players the Holly Key, which can be taken to the Kimono Room and used to open a small drawer to grab the Echo Stone Earring. This item opens up the alternative ending. So not only can players not see the best ending the game has to offer on their first playthrough, it's also very easy to miss on a second. And if you do, looks like you're playing the game through for a third time if you want to see that alternative and much happier ending. Number 2. Gems, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Crash Bandicoot 4 might feel like a warm and fuzzy nostalgic return to form, but with an average completionist playtime of 84 hours, it's clear developers Toys for Bob weren't pulling their punches. Part of reaching this goal is collecting the 7 gems for each stage, which are gained by collecting a certain amount of Wumpa Fruit, breaking all the boxes, and not dying. Additionally, each stage has a hidden gem. Some of these are pretty blatant, but the vast majority of them seem to be designed to test your patience. Both gems and boxes are hidden out of view, behind geometry, and in areas you had no idea you could even reach. And it gets even worse when you finally grab all 228 gems to realise you're only halfway, as you need to do it all again for the inverted stages. Unlike most entries on this list, the gems in Crash 4 aren't missable in a permanent sense, because that would be cruelty beyond measure. Instead, Crash 4 gets this honourable placement for that feeling in your stomach when you rock up to the end of a stage and realise you've missed 1 out of the 500 breakable boxes. Thus, you'll need to go back and play this 15-minute level all over again just because you couldn't see the box hidden underneath the stairs or something. Good grief. Number 1. Limit Octet. Tales of Vesperia. One gameplay element of modern-day classic JRPG Tales of Vesperia is the over limit, a bar divided into quarters that fills during battle and allows players to make the character that activates it more powerful in numerous different ways. Therefore, the limit octet, which doubles the size of this bar, seems like a handsome prize that most players can stand to benefit from. To get it, players must visit Yormgum in the post-game, talk to a specific sage, and fly south to enter the Labyrinth of Memories. This optional dungeon is one of Vesperia's toughest, and asks the players to gather 15 fake gold from random boss drops and chests. This will entitle them to face the traitor to heaven, who is actually Kratos. No, not that one, the one from Tales of Symphonia. From there, this unlocks the 200-man melee, and once beaten, this grants access to Tag Tournament Savage, which will give exhausted players the limit octet. Vesperia has a nasty habit of keeping some of its most interesting content way off the path, but what makes this entirely more frustrating is that past a certain point, it's possible to lose access to the Labyrinth of Memories and its superpowered trinket altogether. If you don't visit the rift at Pharaoh's Crag at a certain point in the story, you won't be able to suffer through this arduous checklist, even if you wanted to. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video in the comments below, and whilst you're down there, let us know if you felt the pain and torment of missing out on these items specifically, and also any other missables in video games that we didn't include in this list. There's way too many out there. Let's face it, we can all agree this kind of thing should be illegal. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.